Hey everybody, welcome to the Note Investing Podcast. It's your host, Dan Deppen. And this being episode one, I'm going to keep this one fairly brief, but I want to talk a little bit about what we'll be covering in this podcast and a little bit of my background and why I got so interested in note investing. So as this podcast moves along, I'll be doing a lot of case studies, which a lot of folks have asked for. And what I really want to do is get into a lot of the nitty-gritty details of these note deals and talk about some of the things that happen, both good and bad, that a lot of people don't talk about, whether that be on Bigger Pockets or various Facebook groups. So as you go out there online to learn about notes, there's a lot of what I like to call raw notes. People talk about how it's easy and it's passive income and there's no toilets and no tenants. And that can be true in some cases, but there are a lot of little other moving parts, a lot of other surprises that can be lurking at times for you. So I want to talk about those so that people understand how these things work. Now, at the same time, note investing is still a great niche and one that I make my living off of, and I think is very, very worthwhile exploring. And the reason for that is it's an area of real estate that not everybody and their brother is trying to do. So there's not as much competition out there. Now, with that goes, it's a little more opaque, right? So it's a little bit harder to find information, can sometimes be a little tough to find deals. But when you compare that to a lot of the other forms of real estate investing that folks do, I think overall, it's very, very worth it. You can find a lot of value and some good returns. So it's something, if you're going to do it, it'll take up a certain amount of time. However, I find it to be very, very worthwhile. So as we move along, I'll be bringing on a lot of different co-hosts, a lot of friends of mine who are very active in the note space, so they can share their stories as well. And then, of course, as I mentioned, getting into a lot of different case studies and numbers and the things that, actually happen that people don't tend to write down as much in books and on Facebook posts and Bigger Pockets posts and other sorts of things. So that's what you can expect down the road. And as for me and some of my background, I actually didn't come to notes through a real estate background. I was mostly traded stocks and then got into options. So from the time I was 19, I started buying stocks. The first stock I bought, I think, was Microsoft in 1995. Also played a lot of poker, wrote a book on poker, and used to coach that. So I've always kind of liked doing analysis on various kinds of investing. And I reached a point a couple years ago where the stock market was getting pretty high, and having invested through the dot-com boom and bust, and then the financial crisis, I became all too aware of how, in the stock market, that thing can drop 30% fairly quickly, even when it may not appear that that's coming anytime soon. So I want to diversify some of my money away from stocks into real estate. And so initially looked at doing traditional rentals. And here in the Denver area where I live, property prices are pretty high, and a lot of the math and cap rates on rentals just don't make a lot of sense. So I started looking for other niches and other forms of other forms of real estate investing, and that's when I came across notes. And when I found that, I really dug into it because it had a lot of things that I liked. The fact that it's kind of niche-y, not everybody understands it, and you're not competing with everybody and their brother for the same deals. So I went deep down the rabbit hole, started building a notes business on the side while I was working full-time as a product manager at a software company. And then I kind of reached a point in August of 2018 where the business had grown big enough and there was enough potential there that I felt like I was really better served by focusing full-time on notes. So that's what I've been doing since then. At the time of recording this podcast, got about 55 notes overall, mostly non-performing. Got performing notes as well. And so as we move along, I'll be doing case studies on both. So that's just a little bit info on me. I'll be getting into a lot more details on me and notes as we move along. So hope you'll join me for this. I think it'll be a lot of fun and get into a lot of good details that people don't always talk about in other places. So, all right, until next time, bye.